Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to Automotive JT. I've had a few questions on the channel recently about what I am running on the Jeep Gladiator, specifically the sound. Somebody asked me recently, what system are you running on that truck? I can hear when you're driving around, like we're going to do in a minute, that it's got kind of a more throaty, more bass kind of a sound to the exhaust. So let's take a short little trip. I'll let you guys listen to it at higher speed and then lower speed. Actually, we're at the lows now. We're going to pull out of the parking lot. I'll start it up and let you listen. I mean, not much there, right? Sounds like any other Jeep or truck or whatever, I suppose, stock. But we're going to take off through the parking lot now. Have a listen. I got on the gas a little bit, granted, but we'll take a turn here, get ahead of this car. That's just pulling up to a stop sign, I guess. We'll make one more turn onto the road. That's cruising up to 30 miles an hour. Now, hopefully, it picks it up. And the sound does change. The warmer the truck seems to get, the louder it seems to be. So it's almost like it's got to warm up a little bit to get the full sound out of it. Now, I'm going to go on a little bit higher speed road here, and you guys can listen to it, both getting up to speed and then just cruising. And then I'm going to tell you and show you what I have. And I'm going to let you know what I think of it after having it actually in a couple of different Jeep Gladiators. Okay, here we're cruising. We're at 30 miles an hour. I'm going to get up to speed 55. Have a listen. Now, you can probably hear a lot of wind, actually, because it's a relatively windy day, but you can hear a little bit of background exhaust, and that's what I like about this. It's not overpowering, it's not droning, it's not crazy. Here we'll make a slower speed turn and then get up to 30 miles an hour. There you can hear it a little bit. So what it is, it's an Airaid cold air intake. This is what it looks like. Now you can see there's not really anything flashy about it. I mean, it's just a rectangular box in essence with a small window on it. And the filter inside, that's it. And the key, I think, to what Airaid has done with it is the configuration or the setup of the box, because that's what gives you the sound. Whatever they've done, it's the only one that I've ever come across that gives me enough sound from the intake, I guess. It's not really the exhaust, but it gives me that throatier sound I want. So let's take a turn. And you can just hear it in the background. And what I also like about it is when I'm driving variable speeds, you know, like if I'm in traffic and it slows down a little bit, and then I get back up to speed, when I hit the gas, I can hear it grumble. But again, it's not overbearing, and it's certainly nothing that's going to drive you nuts when you're running around town with it. Now, as far as to whether or not I like it, well, you can probably tell I love it. And you know, if you watch the channel, that things don't last on here too long if I don't like them. I'll replace them with something else, which I had done before. I had an S&B cold air intake on here because I actually liked the looks of it better. I liked that it had the big plexiglass panel on top that you could just remove 4 screws and change the filter. That's really the only problem with this Airaid intake. To change the filter, you have to pull the front part of it off. And to pull the front part of it off, you basically have to uninstall the air intake to do that. I don't really dig that. It's a lot of work to just change a filter that I think if Airaid would have just put one of those plexiglass type covers on it, could have avoided that. Could have just had 4 screws like everybody else, and maybe that's why they didn't do it, because they didn't want to be like everybody else. But that would have made it a lot easier from a maintenance standpoint. Now, I will say, depending on where you drive and how much you drive the truck, these filters do seem to last a bit longer. You know, I've had the filter running in this truck now for, man, it's probably been a year, something like that, and it still looks brand new. It's not showing a lot of dirt and stuff in it. Granted, I don't drive the truck solely. I have 2 other vehicles. Of course, the Rob Motive channel, which features the Toyota Tacoma, and Mod Driven, which has the Honda Civic. So I do split driving time between all 3. So none of the vehicles get tons of miles on them anyway. And that helps keep maintenance type items down, like oil changes and air filters and all that kind of stuff. So keep that in mind. If you're driving your truck solely, you're probably going to, trying to make sure I don't back into anybody here, you're probably going to have more changes required. In other words, you're going to have to replace that filter more frequently. But even given the slight flaw, in my opinion, of having to remove basically the whole thing to change the filter, I still really do like it. I would not change it. Again, I've had other air filters, or cold air intakes, I should say, in other trucks, and I've never come across one that gives me the kind of sound that the Airaid does. And it's too bad that Airaid doesn't have one similar for the Toyota Tacoma. I believe they have one for the Tacoma, but it's a completely different setup. And given my experience with the S&Bs and others in the past, I'm not real hip to go out and spend that $3 or $4 or more $100 to go to another filter to give it a try, another intake, I should say. Now, I keep thinking of filters because in the back of my mind, you know, I've had people tell me that they've put in, say, a K&N air filter, and that they've gotten this tremendous sound out of putting that air filter in place of the stock one in their stock intake system. Now, I've done that in the past myself, and I'll tell you, I noticed nothing. There never was any difference. I didn't get any more sound, so I think it's probably the placebo effect. They did it, they expected something from it, and they really got nothing. I've never noticed anything from that, so I'd save your money. It's just not worth it, in my opinion. One other thing I want to mention real quick is the filter media. I'm running in this Airaid cold air intake just the cloth type, the non-oiled. I'm not a big fan of oil because it seems to me that you're trying to get as much airflow through as you can. When you clog up those little pores with oil, and chance sucking that oil into the intake or the throttle body, doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I know they're supposed to be replaceable and all that, but I think it's a gimmick. Nothing that I do, but you got to do what you want to do. Anyway, I just wanted to get in there, or on here rather, and mention that. I've had some questions about what I'm running. Definitely not an aftermarket exhaust. It's just an aftermarket cold air intake. If you've had the Airaid, let me know. I'd be curious if you've experienced the same thing and if you're satisfied with it. Leave a comment. Also, real quick, I do have 2 additional channels. Rob Motive, all about that Toyota Tacoma, and Mod Driven, all about the Honda Civic. Check them out, and if you're interested, why not subscribe? And while you're at it, smash the subscribe button here too. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there. Bye.